Welcome. In this module, we're focusing on DSMB meetings and reports, which are central to how trial oversight works in practice. To start, here's where we're going. First, we'll look at how DSMB meetings are structured. Next, we'll walk through what belongs in DSMB reports and why the distinction between open and closed sessions matters so much. Then we'll look at communication pathways, like how safety data, interim analyses, and formal recommendations move from the DSMB to the trial team and other oversight bodies. And finally, we'll focus on accountability, including how documentation, timelines, and clear reporting practices keep the process timely, traceable, and credible.
A DSMB meeting is not just another study update. It is a formal decision checkpoint. It is asking three practical questions. Is the trial still safe? Is it still credible? And is it still on track to answer the question it was designed to address? The first meeting is usually more of an orientation. It sets expectations, reviews the charter, clarifies roles, and gives the board a working understanding of the trial.
After that, the meetings become more structured and repeatable. That consistency matters because it helps the DSMB focus on change over time, spot emerging concerns early, and make recommendations in a disciplined way, rather than reacting to isolated issues.
Once the purpose of the meeting is clear, the next question is what the meeting actually looks like in practice. Most DSMB meetings follow a structured format built around two core sessions. They usually begin with an open session, where invited participants join for roll call, conflict of interest checks, and review of the open report. This is followed by a closed session, during which the DSMB reviews restricted material, interprets the findings, and develops its recommendation independently. This structure matters because it balances two goals: keeping the study team appropriately informed while protecting the board's independent judgment. In some cases, there may also be a brief pre-meeting huddle where DSMB members align on key concerns before the open session begins, and a short executive session after the closed discussion, where DSMB members meet without the independent statistician present to finalize their view. A DSMB meeting is only as good as the material the board receives in advance. That is why the meeting package needs to arrive early, ideally 1 to 2 weeks before the meeting, so members have time to read, reflect, and identify questions before the discussion begins. At a minimum, the package should include the agenda, the signed charter, previous minutes and action items, the full report set, any slide deck being used to guide the discussion, and a discussion of relevant advances published since the last meeting.
Getting the package out on time depends on having the data ready on time. And that almost always takes longer than teams expect. The process starts with setting a clear cutoff date, because once that date is fixed, everything downstream depends on it. From there, the data needs to be cleaned and locked, with special attention to data feeds, expected data lag, and coding consistency. Only then can the open and closed report versions be generated and checked through internal quality review. Those reports should also follow a consistent structure across meetings, so the DSMB can focus on what has changed rather than relearning the format each time. And after that, the package still has to be distributed within the timeline set by the charter.
Now let's translate that session boundary into the reports themselves. The open report is designed to support transparent operational discussion without risking bias. That means it uses pooled or aggregate data rather than treatment group comparisons. Typical open report content includes recruitment and accrual, overall and by site, retention, protocol deviations, data completeness, timeliness, and overall safety trends, as long as those trends do not reveal group-level differences. The closed report is different. It is restricted to DSMB members and the designated unblinded statistician, and it contains the material needed for independent judgment. That includes outcome summaries by treatment group, adverse events by group, and interim analyses tied to stopping boundaries. Clear file names marked open or closed, along with matching headers and page labels, also help prevent avoidable handling errors before they happen. At its core, the open report helps the study team understand how the trial is running, while the closed report helps the DSMB decide whether the trial should continue as planned, continue with changes, pause, or stop.
Once the DSMB has reviewed the closed report, the next question is what kind of recommendation the data actually support. Stopping rules are not driven solely by statistics. As we discussed in the previous module, DSMB recommendations are grounded in ethics and informed by the trial's ability to produce a credible answer. A trial may need to stop or change course because of harm if there is convincing evidence of unacceptable risk. It may also stop for overwhelming benefit if continuing to withhold the intervention is no longer ethically defensible. Futility applies when the accumulating data suggest the trial is unlikely to answer its primary question if it continues. Stopping decisions are not always about treatment effects. Operational failure, such as recruitment collapse, major data pipeline problems, or implementation breakdown, can also make it impossible for the trial to deliver credible results.
This slide is about documenting the meeting in a way that is clear, complete, and properly controlled. Open and closed minutes need to be kept separate because open minutes must never contain unblinded comparisons, while closed minutes may include sensitive material that requires restricted access. Just as important, the minutes should be circulated promptly, ideally within 1 week, so that decisions and follow-up actions are not left hanging. Good documentation is part of the oversight process itself. At a minimum, the minutes should capture the agenda items discussed, a concise summary of the discussion and key concerns, and a clear list of action items, including who is responsible and when those actions are due. Audio recordings, if allowed, should be treated the same way as any other confidential oversight material.
Next is having controlled communications. The DSMB's recommendations should not move through informal side conversations or partial updates. It should be communicated through a clear, written letter from the chair to the principal investigator and sponsor. That letter needs to state the recommendation plainly, explain the rationale, and identify any required actions. From there, trial leadership is responsible for putting that recommendation into practice, whether that means continuing as planned, making protocol changes, pausing enrollment, or taking other corrective steps. And if those actions affect the approved protocol, the appropriate research ethics board and regulators, when relevant, need to be notified. The key point is that the oversight loop does not end when the meeting ends. It only closes when the recommendation is clearly communicated, formally acted on, and, where required, appropriately reported.
This slide provides 2 sample recommendation texts, one for continuing as planned and one for continuing with modification. They are included as examples of how DSMB recommendations can be written clearly with a direct statement of the recommendation, a brief rationale, and any follow-up actions expected from the study team. Feel free to pause here and read through the sample wording in more detail.
To wrap up, there are really 3 points to keep in mind. First, DSMB meetings are structured for a reason. Whether that includes a pre-meeting huddle, an open session, a closed session, or an executive discussion, each part has a distinct protective function. Second, reports should be built for decision-making, not just documentation. That means a consistent structure, clear signal over noise, and a firm separation between open and closed materials. And third, the oversight loop has to close. Good preparation matters, but so do clear minutes, controlled communication, and timely follow-through after the meeting. When those pieces work together, the DSMB process helps keep a trial both safe and credible.
I hope this module gave you a practical understanding of how structured oversight supports trial safety, credibility, and accountability. If you found this helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. You can also explore additional resources, connect with the program online, or reach out by email using the links on this slide.